Hi, and welcome to another of our audio blogs in the series on learning experience. Today, we're going to talk about how to effectively implement a modern learning experience. I'm David Wentworth. I'm the Principal Learning Analyst here at Brandon Hall Group, and I'm joined by Carl Chrysostoma, who is Product Manager for Content at Saba. And we are going to talk a little bit about effectively implementing a modern learning experience. So, Carl, we've spent some time talking about different things about the need for a modern learning experience. We've talked about what goes into that experience. We talk a little bit about measurement. But let's say you're in an organization and you've bought into why it's important, why it's meaningful, and you're starting to understand what goes into it. What's next? How do you actually roll something like this out? How do you deliver on this?
Yeah, I think it all starts with your strategy. You need to understand why you're implementing this modern learning experience and what outcomes you want to achieve. And if you create a learning experience, that's driven by individual, team, and organizational goals, you're doing this great thing of not only engaging the learners, but you're also driving outcomes and demonstrating learning's impact on those outcomes. So I think if you want to be really effective at the beginning of your implementation, you need to go out and find your business goals if you don't have them already. And I recently spoke to one CLO who got his team to be really familiar with the company's or the organization's annual report. And not only did that give them an idea of what the company wanted to achieve, it also had the side effect of giving them an understanding of the language of their business. He wanted them, his aim with this exercise was to get them to go and look for opportunities, a way in which learning can help can help the business realize its objectives. So I think that's really the kind of starting point. And I think once you have those in place, it's then time to kind of focus on the learner. What's in it for them? It needs to be relevant. How does it, support what the business wants them to do? How can it help them in their career? How can it help them achieve something aspirational in their personal life? And so, I think you need to look at the business goals at a starting point, and then the kind of the goals of the learner, and that really kind of starts you off on a nice footing to begin to start that implementation process.
Yeah, and our research sort of bears out that point of starting with the strategy. As you talk about it, sometimes it sounds like it's just common sense, but only about 2/3 of the companies in our research say that their learning strategy aligns with business objectives. So you wonder what the strategy is all about for that other third. Like, what are they aiming their learning strategy at? And it actually, even sort of more of a challenge, only 40% say that their learning strategy is well defined. So it's sort of this loose collection of thoughts and ideas. So the idea is really, in order to execute on something like this and roll it out, it has to become part of the fabric, be part of that strategy. And we saw in our research that the companies that do these things, that align with business objectives, align the strategy with learner objectives, get feedback on the strategy from both learners and other business stakeholders. The companies that are doing those things at the strategy level, they're seeing far better outcomes, far better impact of their learning on the outcomes that they're aimed at than the companies that aren't doing those things. So clearly, focusing on the strategy is a huge important factor. And then the next thing you brought up is the learner part, focusing on the learner. Again, in the strategy, including learner feedback as part of the strategy is key. But then all these items of, if you're going to roll this out, it's all about including the learner. We talked a bit in one of the other instances of this audio blog about the what's in it for me factor. So do they know the goals and outcomes that are expected of the program? Is there a link between the learning they're seeing and their personal and professional objectives? Do they actually get a personalized learning plan? They can actually track their own progress. So the companies that do those things, again, in the research that we've done, we asked if these companies, if their learning is impacting things like time to productivity or individual performance, various other outcomes. And time again, the companies that do these things that are outlined in this modern learning experience that we've been describing, they are seeing much better results.
Yeah, I think it is the foundation for success. And I think, once you're underway, then it's all about being agile. And don't fall into that trap of kind of rolling out your experience, and then one day, say 1 year later, when you're being asked for ROI figures, maybe because you bought some technology to support that experience, and you do your first analysis. It's about being agile. It's about analyzing the data that you have at hand, which may come from the learning technology or other things that you've put in place to gather data. You need to kind of metaphorically get out from behind your desk and kind of go and speak to people, engage with those learners. And that does a great thing, because what it does then is it allows you to start focusing on things. It allows you to start prioritizing and really focusing on things that are going to create the biggest impact. And I'm a big fan of quick wins, how you can show value in what you're doing and garner support from within the organization. Any change project or kind of any transformation project, there will always be people that want to scupper what you're doing. It's not often malicious, but they often think should go in an alternative direction. So it's really, really important to not only gather data, and it could be as simple as, our old learning experience had usage levels here, and our new one that we've rolled out is here. Very, very kind of a simple piece of data. But you need to be gathering that information constantly, and most importantly, get it out there and shout about your successes, because that's really, really important if you're going to garner support and kind of put to bed some of the kind of comments that you may hear in terms of people wanting to take you into alternative directions.
Yes, and typically that alternative direction is usually no direction at all. And that's always a challenge to battle that. So I think one of the other elements that's really important in this discussion that seems to be sort of left for last, we talk a lot about the strategy, we talk about the technology and the delivery, but really, even though you might have a great experience from a delivery standpoint with searchability and personalization, ultimately that journey leads a learner to interact with some sort of content. And so it's really important that in this process, organizations think about the content that they have or will have, how they're going to use it, and how do they know, how to include the content and what should they include.
Yeah, well, personally, when I look at a learning experience, and I think, what type of content should people gravitate towards, I kind of don't guide people in any particular direction, whether it should be a particular content type or whether it should be micro or long form, because I think it's a case of picking the right type of content for a particular situation. Though I have to say, I was really interested to see your data on learning tools and technology, and which kind of showed video learning right at the top of that tree. What I will say is that I think you need to mix it up, and that's less about the kind of concept of how people learn, and it's as much about convenience. I'm on a train, I like to watch video. I'm driving, I like to listen to audio. I spend my time in Microsoft Teams. I'd like content to appear in there. So yeah, I think it's specific in specific situations. Video is really, really, really popular, and I think you really need to kind of mix up the experience, use lots of different modalities to create something that's engaging and rich.
Yeah, and I think that's really the key is being able to offer a variety of experiences. And you mentioned in the research that video is at the top. I think for the past couple of years, video has been becoming the sort of go-to learning tool, whether long form, short form. We're seeing a lot of technological advancements within video as far as how searchable it is and how interactive it can be. And it's really becoming the go-to tool for learning. So I think that's an important thing to understand too when you're putting this together is what is your approach to video and how you're managing it. But as Carl, as you mentioned, it's the variety of interactions because each thing will help solve a specific challenge for a specific audience in a specific time frame. You take all of those things into consideration, that's going to help you figure out what's the best tool, type of content necessary to get what you're looking for. So we talked a little bit in this section on the audio blogs about demonstrating value, and I think we have another audio blog that's very focused on the measurement of this new learning experience. So I think if you're interested in that demonstrating value piece, definitely want to check out the audio blog on measuring the impact of a modern learning experience. We also have blogs on what makes a good learning experience and also why the learning experience is important and what it means to the business. So I highly encourage you to check out the other audio blogs in this series, and thank you for joining us.